At this time, let's begin today's CMC event, Developing Your Career. I would like to introduce your moderator for today, and that is Christina Cleveland, Senior Director, Talent Development Solutions at Canadian Management Center. She has experience leading global project teams through complex leadership development implementations and partners with CMC clients to consult through the analysis and development of their leadership strategies. With that, Christina, I will hand the floor over to you.
Thanks so much, Jess, and hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to participate. We are very excited to welcome over 1,000 people who have registered for today's session. And for those of you who may be new to Canadian Management Center, we want to take a moment to give you a special welcome and to just introduce that Canadian Management Center is an organization focused on providing professional development training to individuals and organizations. We do deliver sessions across the country and for many clients inside their organizations. For those of you who are participating in a webinar as a second opportunity or you've joined us before, welcome back to you. CMC, it was established in 1963, so we've just celebrated our 50th birthday, and we are going to be offering a Twitter contest today to celebrate, and we are initiating a campaign of 50 courses for 50 years. So CMC is giving away 50 free registrations into a CMC program. So you do have the option of tweeting along with us today using the hashtag CMC events. And for every tweet, you will be entered with the chance to win our free program, which for this month will be Preparing for Leadership, one of CMC's top 10 programs. And the contest will be open until January 31st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, you can tweet along with us using the hashtag CMC events to share any insights or learning from today's session. And do please follow us at Canadian Management. Jessica has reviewed the features with you in terms of the chat and Q&A panels, and we do welcome your participation as we go through today's session, and I will be trying to moderate any discussions that come in and making sure that any questions that you have do get answered by our guest speaker. After today's session, you will receive an email that will provide you with a link to a recording of the webinar. That is a popular question from all of our participants, and we know that it can be challenging to capture all your notes very quickly, so we will be sending you an email that will have a link to follow up. So we are going to get moving into our session for today and starting off with why this topic. So for those of you who have joined us for webinars before, you know that we drive the topics based on what our clients are asking us to deliver. So this topic was requested by many of our clients, individuals and organizations, and actually has been a recent focus of Canadian Management Center's course guide, where we have an editorial section focusing on what's next for your team. But to answer the question about why career development, really when you think about it, the environment has changed in the workplace, and we're really not in a situation any longer where people just naturally get promoted into specific positions. And movement or progression within our career isn't necessarily up through the ranks. We can move across an organization, and for many of us, we may actually change career several times. So what we're seeking as individuals has evolved over time, and the idea of career development, for many people, you think about your current situation or your current role, and you may be too busy to start thinking about what's next for you. But really all of us need to be constantly thinking about what the next opportunity could be for us, what we want to be focused on doing, what brings out the best in us, and not just doing that when we may be feeling dissatisfied in a current position or dissatisfied in a current role, but something that we're actively pursuing and investigating. So we're very excited today to welcome our guest speaker, who's Lisa Dare. She's a Canadian Management Center facilitator. And Lisa has been with CMC since 2012 and is actually based out of Calgary, Alberta. So Lisa's career has spanned from healthcare as a clinical hospital pharmacist to the corporate world of pharmaceutical sales, and now as a private consultant, coach, and facilitator. So she's a perfect example of somebody who has evolved their career to pursue their passions. Now, Lisa has completed her coaching certification through the Coaches Training Institute, as well as a focus on advanced leadership training. And she does work with individuals and organizations in a variety of topic areas, including career coaching and development as a specialty. So no doubt she'll be able to share some great insights with us today and give us some things that we need to be thinking about as we start taking a look at our own individual careers and where we want to move in our career development. So Lisa, I'm going to turn things over to you to get us started.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Christina. And I'm really pleased to be here today and talk about this particular topic because it is so timely. And as you mentioned in the introduction, there have been so many changes now in terms of career development and what's been happening in the world of work. And I'm really delighted to see that so many people have joined us today. So I'd like to start by just taking a moment to review our agenda for today. And the areas that we're going to cover today we'll start by talking about what are some of the barriers to career development. There's obviously obstacles that people might encounter, and we're going to talk about those and different ways that people can manage them. We're also going to look at how to redefine career development. So as was mentioned in the introduction, the way that people are now developing their career is much different than it has been in the past. The opportunities to move up in an organization are not as plentiful as they have been in the past, and certainly the approach is very different as well. And then in terms of who are the key players in career development and what roles will they play in terms of helping you to develop your career. And then from there, we'll move into developing your career path, so creating that plan and setting that map of how you're going to accomplish what you want to set out to do. Goal setting, and then communication, so how to articulate those plans and needs that you have. So if we look at career development just at a glance and some interesting statistics that we've come up with that reflect what's going on in the world today in terms of work. First of all, there's a report that came out from Right Management, which is a global firm specializing in talent and career management workforce solutions. And what they found was that really only about a third of leaders actually regularly discuss career development with their employees. So what that means is more than over 60% of leaders are actually not having any kind of regular discussion with their employees around career development. And in addition to that, research that was done at Dynamic Business suggests that about only 50% of employees actually find themselves in a role that they're aligned to, which means that half of workers actually feel disconnected to their work. And in addition to that, work that was actually done with Canadian Management Centre in their research captured through Build a Better Workplace actually found that less than 50% of respondents felt that their managers helped to create any growth for them in their career as well. So, and Christina, I'd like to invite you for a moment to just maybe comment on that Build a Better Workplace report.
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. So what this was an employee engagement study, and a key component of engagement is making sure that people are, feeling involved and aligned to their work responsibilities. So this research was released in 2013, and definitely gave us an indication that for many employees across Canada, they were feeling that their manager doesn't create as many opportunities for growth or development within their specific or current roles. So really looking at opportunities for stretch assignments or being able to do new things.
Great. Well, thanks for that additional information. And with that, this is going to lead to our first poll question for today, which is, who do you believe is responsible for career development? So A would be Human Resources Department, your manager, supervisor, you, or all of the above. So I'll just ask you to take a moment now to actually submit your answer on the poll.
So just a reminder that the poll will open on the right-hand side of your screen, so the 4 options will be available for you to select one. So just select the radio button for your response and then click on Submit. And we'll leave the poll open for about 30 seconds so that everybody has an opportunity to submit their responses. So we're definitely interested to get your insights today, so also feel free again to use the chat panel to submit any comments that you have, and or use the Q&A panel as well to submit any questions that are coming in. And once we close out the poll, Lisa will be able to share the results with you.
And it's interesting so far that the results are showing that there is more than 50% of the group that has actually selected D, which is all of the above, and coming in second is response C, which is you.
Well, that's a great indication, as I'm sure a lot of the individuals participating today are doing so on their own motivation to take a look at what they can be doing in order to continue to develop their career. Yeah,
absolutely. So are we I'm not sure where we are.
Yeah,
Has our
I think we're.
poll
I think
closed yet?
Yeah, I think Jessica just closed the poll. So 53% of our attendees today feel that it is all of the above, and 45% feel that they individually are responsible for their careers.
Okay,
Correct.
and it's interesting that what didn't actually come up at all was the human resources department. And a very small percentage, 2%, actually had selected your manager or supervisor. So it sounds like from these results that it's appearing that actually people have, our participants have a pretty high level of awareness of some of the shifts that have happened in our workplace already. So with that, in fact, that's absolutely correct, that if we talk about career development, actually it starts with you. So it is something that is an individual responsibility, and we'll also talk about the roles that the other players can have in developing your career. So with that, we're actually going to talk about barriers. So we're going to start with that because as many people have already identified, everybody can play a role, but again, it's you that is really the driver of this. So knowing that, what are some of the things that people struggle with in terms of actually being able to develop a meaningful career path for themselves? So there's 3 key barriers that we'll actually talk about this morning, and it starts with beliefs, and we'll also talk about resources and personal judgments. So when we talk about beliefs, that's one of those things that many people, and in working with clients that I find, can really hold them back at times, and so much so that it really can cause a lot of lack of movement. So what are some of those beliefs that people may have around career development that could actually create some impairments for them? Well, certainly one of the things that people may have a belief around is not being skilled enough. Certainly in today's age and in this workplace, for example, computer savviness. Often people may feel that technological barriers may exist that prevent them from actually being able to be skilled enough to move to the next level. There are often sometimes people that believe that they may not be able to find fulfillment in any kind of work that they're looking for. So they may feel discouraged and feel like, well, work is just work, and that I may not be able to ever really find that work that is going to be meaningful and fulfilling. There may also be, for some of the workforce, a concern or a belief around the fact that age plays a role, that they may be too old, or that they're so invested in their current job or career that it's going to be really difficult to make that change. And sometimes we hear that expression of the golden handcuffs, where it makes it really difficult for someone to move because really, as humans, we're much more comfortable staying where we are, even though it may be a bit uncomfortable. There is also as well that fear of the unknown. And again, as I mentioned, it's often easier to stay with what we know than to actually try and venture into something that we're not really sure about. In addition to that, there may also be that fear of failing. So if I go and try something, is it actually going to work? Or on the other side, what if I actually become really successful? So there are lots of different beliefs that can be on either side of that. And as we go through this, I'd also like to encourage participants to use the chat panel to share any of the reasons that you might have where you haven't been taking full control of your career. So if we talk about resources, there may be different reasons why resources and the lack of them may be a barrier as well. So, for example, there may not be the tools available to progress. Somebody who doesn't have those computer skills may not have access or may not have the ability to take the courses that they'll need. There may not be opportunities within the current organization. So as we mentioned at the beginning, organizations are flattening. So if there's a perception that career development is about moving up and getting the promotion, they may not exist. Or in different cycles of the economy, there may be downsizing and simply not those positions or opportunities available. And as we mentioned before, more than 60% of managers are not discussing career development regularly with their employees. So it may be that the managers are not identifying or offering new opportunities for employees. It may also be, too, that learning opportunities or that knowledge to advance is not there. So again, often in times where there are financial constraints, learning and development is often one of the first areas within organizations that may be impacted by those financial constraints. And again, lack of funding. So, for example, where I can see some of that happening is people who work within the not-for-profit sector, where there's often always that challenge of finding sufficient funding to be able to support learning and development opportunities. And lastly, personal judgments. These may also get in the way of career development. So one of the big ones is having the difficulty of selling ourselves. And as many people know, one of the key things in terms of career development, and particularly for those that are looking at career transition, is how do we actually position ourselves, talk about ourselves, and promote ourselves. We've often been given the message that we shouldn't be selling ourselves or bragging because that's uncomfortable. A lack of networking. So I've come across many people that have never really thought about how important a network is, to be connected to those people that may be able to help them or that they may be able to help to support them and provide resources for them through their career development. There may also be a perception that there just isn't enough time, that this is a time-consuming activity and they simply don't have the time to devote to this. There may also be as well just that lack of knowledge about where to start or even how to do it. So that obviously can present a barrier as well. Or there may be that perception that the boss doesn't care, so why would I engage in this if they don't care? Or it may even just be as simple as, I simply don't know what I want. And that's a very common expression that I'll hear from clients is, I really don't know what I want to do when I grow up. But realizing that you are the one that drives your own career development, hopefully just being aware of that, this will help in terms of identifying some of the ways that you can deal with these barriers. So this leads to our next poll question, which is, which barrier is most prominent in your career development? Is it your beliefs, your lack of available resources, or personal judgments?
We've got a lot of chatter happening on the chat panel right now, which is visible to myself and Lisa, but definitely seems that there are a lot of people expressing that available resources may be a key barrier for them, whether that's a lack of management support, lack of awareness of their key responsibilities and what they do. And then, of course, too, the potential lack of funding to be able to invest in career development. And one individual commented in particular, Lisa, that their interests for their next step in their career is outside of the scope of their current role or what they're doing within their organization, so they're finding it difficult to get support to do something that may end up leading them outside of the organization.
Oh, okay. Well, and that's a really interesting comment, Christina, because obviously that brings up a couple of different issues, which is one, the whole comfort level of actually having that discussion with the manager. And as you said, how will I even go about doing that while I'm occupied in my current role as well? So, and certainly I think, you know, in our discussion today, hopefully as we go through this, there may be some ideas that get generated that may help this particular individual to think about some resources that they can access. One of the things that I've actually thought about and noticing there's a growing popularity around is actually with the advent of technology is the access to a lot of online courses, which many of them are actually free of charge. And even participating in something like this, which is really such a great opportunity and wealth of information where people can act upon it. So I think certainly now with technology, there's a lot of different avenues to go. But I think also as well that one of the difficulties can be with career development is just actually having the courage to have the conversations, which we'll actually talk about shortly in our discussion today.
It looks like
so it looks like
closed.
Okay, great. So it looks like where the responses that we have is a lot of it is actually the majority of people have actually said it's a lack of available resources. So it sounds like from some of the comments that it's both mostly internally and that there may be some opportunities to look at some external ways of accessing that. Personal judgments is the next one, and then beliefs. And really as we think about it, beliefs and personal judgments are very closely related to one another. So if we think about that, that actually makes up 58% of our respondents have something that they could actually focus on personally that may help them to move forward in their career development. So I really like this quote, and some of you may have seen it before. It's actually from Henry Ford, which says, whether you think you can or you can't, you are right. And it's really such a powerful quote, and certainly as a coach, it's something that I see so often, because many times with my clients, I will say to them, you know, really, you just need to get out of your own way. And as we can see from our polling results, actually, close to 60% of our participants are actually probably dealing with something that is a personal belief or judgment that may be getting in the way for them. So even just having the awareness around what are those beliefs or judgments that I might have that are getting in my way, and if I can work on that and focus on that, that'll really open up the channels for me to be able to move on to developing a more fulfilling and rich career. So let's move on to talking about what is career development. So as we talked about, the world of work has now changed significantly, and the way that we define career development has changed significantly as well. And one of the ways that I really like to position career development is that it really is a journey. And it's less about the destination and more about really what is the path that we're going to take to get there. And when we're planning out a journey, it's really important to know where it is that we're headed, because otherwise we're obviously not going to know when we get there. And so having that plan is important, and that plan or that map is going to help us to navigate that journey and ensure that we make decisions that are intentional and well-researched, and then that we're able to create the opportunities that will help to keep us on course. So having said that, the different components that define career development now are having a planned series of tasks and assignments. They should be long-range, long-term. We want to ensure that we monitor them and that we clearly define them. And so really what this is about is ensuring that what we do encompasses that acronym that we call SMART. So many of you have probably heard of that, which is making sure that it's smart, it's specific, that it is something that is meaningful, that it's achievable, it's realistic, and that it's timed, that there is a specific time frame to it. An endless process. So it is something, career development is something that's ongoing and is going to span through the different generations of our life. So it's not just a single task in time, but it is something that we're going to be working on a regular basis. And it is something that is applicable to everyone. So really, no one is ever too old or too young. We know that in the world that we live in today, that people are living longer, and so really careers don't necessarily end at 55 or at 65, and at the same time, it's also really important, even if you're starting off your career, to be able to map it out and have some sense of where it is that you want to go. And employee-owned, so that reminds me of WestJet, which is that you actually are the one that's driving this process. So remember, this is your journey, and you're the one that is making the decisions and really taking control. So now that we've taken a moment to define career development, what are the different roles that the key players can take in career development? Well, first of all, it starts, as we said, with you. You are driving this process. So as the person driving the process and creating the journey, you start by creating a vision. So becoming very clear about what it is that you want, what that looks like, and really defining it as much as you can. And part of what will help to do that is to actually do a personal inventory, which is reflecting on the strengths that you have, what are the different opportunities that are there, and what are areas and opportunities for development. And then through that process is to seek feedback and to find those opportunities. So how can your leader play a role? Well, your leader can help by encouraging the development. They're also there to provide objective and honest feedback. And depending on what you identify as opportunities, they can help you to look for those opportunities and hopefully to remove some of the barriers that exist for you. And your organization, primarily through human resources, will help with this process by using the performance management plans that are in place, identifying tools and resources that may be needed to support your planning, and if they're available, to provide learning and development opportunities internally. And really, an easy way to think about this is, if we summarize it, is that career development is owned by the employee, it's facilitated by the leader, and supported by the company. So what are the key elements in that career development and developing that career path? Well, as I mentioned before, first of all, it really starts with what I call a personal inventory. It's really understanding and incorporating your personal values. What are your interests and preferences? And then once you know what's in that personal inventory, it's about setting those goals and communicating that plan and ensuring that you can articulate the plan to those who can support you or facilitate your development. So let's start by talking about values. And values are something that are really important and often something that we don't spend a lot of time necessarily reflecting on. And values is really defined as those personal beliefs that guide your everyday life. As a coach, when I work with clients, I really talk to clients about the fact that personal values are your compass. So really, it's your true north. And when we are living in alignment with our values, then that's when we feel our connection. And some of you may be noticing that you may have situations in your life or situations at work where you've had a value that's been compromised. And when that value's been compromised, you'll notice that there's a disconnect or something that really just does not feel right for you. And particularly when we look back at those early statistics that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation, when we know that 50% of people are feeling like they're just not in a role that's fit or aligned to them, there's probably values that are not being respected either. So what are some examples of values? Well, things like honesty, respect, autonomy, collaboration, creativity, recognition, those are all values that may be part of what's important to you. And some ways to discover what those values are is to ask yourself a couple of different questions. So one question may be, how do you work with others? So are you somebody that is very outgoing, or do you tend to be more casual? Do you like are you somebody who likes that formal environment, or are you somebody that works very independently? How do you express yourself? So are you somebody that really values creativity? Are you somebody that really values having very minimal supervision and being given the opportunity to work on your own? Or do you really enjoy having a structured environment where you know exactly how your day is going to be laid out and what the tasks and expectations are? And what are the rewards that are important to you? In my past career, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and the last company that I worked with actually underwent a huge evaluation of their rewards system and recognized that one of the impacts was that generationally different people had different expectations of rewards, and they wanted different rewards. So one individual might say, well, I really value having financial reimbursement. Another person might say, well, I actually value having personal time. And so it's really important to understand that values are something that are a real driver for us and will help guide us in terms of making those decisions that will ensure that we find something that aligns and fits for us. So there's lots of examples of that, as I mentioned. And again, one extreme example that I've used with clients is that imagine if you're somebody who really values integrity and honesty and you worked for Enron. That obviously would not be a great fit. And so, you know, that's just an extreme example of how we use values as a way of helping us to determine how we build our career path. So the next piece is actually looking at interests. And interest, as part of our inventory, is really about those things that are really of interest to you to help you to find that better fit. So there was a study that was done by a professor from Bowling Green State University by the name of Christopher Nye, and he actually found that people who have interests that fit with their job will be better performers and less likely to leave the organization. So this is obviously something that's really important to pay attention to as well. So if you are looking for a new job, it would be really helpful to have that inventory of interests for you. So, for example, are you somebody that enjoys working with your hands? Are you somebody that really enjoys technology? Are you somebody where people is the interest for you? So it's really, again, bringing that in with your values. It's important to really, again, align with that, because that's really going to give you the opportunity to really create a much more focused and fulfilling career path for yourself. So we have on your slide, as you can see, different strategies depending where you are in your career path. So for example, if you are looking for a job, it's really important not to rush to the first job that gets offered to you, because you really want to take the time to be mindful about really ensuring that the alignment is there and the fit is there. And I think that in the world of career development now, and particularly for job seekers, it's really important to place yourself on par with the employer to evaluate, is this the right environment, is it the right role, is it the right fit and culture for me, as much as the employer is doing that assessment as well. And I think that's certainly one of the things that we talk about. Career development has changed from the past, where I think many times employees spent a lot of time trying to actually fit themselves to the job versus really just saying, is this the right fit for me, and really being mindful of that. So if you're in a place where you'd like to actually enhance the role that you have, perhaps it might be an opportunity to actually look at doing some mentoring within the organization or volunteering. One of the organizations that I work with is actually a not-for-profit organization that mentors internationally trained professionals. So this organization has built relationships with corporate Calgary and has recruited mentors from different industries and different organizations to come in to help them to build their leadership skills through mentoring an internationally trained professional. Or there may be volunteer opportunities, as I know many organizations are now involved in what they call corporate social responsibility. And particularly here in Calgary, for those of you who are familiar with recent events, we had the flood last year where many organizations actually supported their employees in participating in initiatives that helped people to actually rebuild after the flood. Now, you may be also in a very fortunate position where you're really happy where you are, and that's a great place to be. But it's also important to recognize that as the world is changing, that you may also want to stay open to that change. Organizations are not static, they're dynamic, and so it's important that even if you are happy and really feel fulfilled where you are, that you still want to keep your eyes open and be willing to change as it occurs. The other thing I just wanted to mention as well is that for those of you that may not have really taken the time to reflect on your values and your interests, in addition to just some of the things that we've discussed here in this presentation, there are other tools that are available online. Some of them are free, so you can do those assessments that are free of charge, and ones that can be purchased. And again, of course, too, there are other resources and support individuals that can help you to do those types of assessments if this is something that you're interested in. So in terms of personal preferences, which is the last piece of the personal inventory, there are different things that motivate us, drive us, engage us, and then also disengage us as well. So it's really beneficial to really understand what are those preferences that really motivate and drive you and engage you. So things like, are you more of an introvert or are you extroverted? Do you prefer to work independently or in teams? This is going to help you to, again, create that picture of what is the ideal work environment for you. And it's also going to be something that will help you to more clearly articulate to somebody else what it is that you're looking for. I find so often when people are going through the process of career development, people around them genuinely want to be helpful, but they often find it difficult to know exactly how to help them. And it was interesting, the other day I had lunch with a former colleague of mine, and we were talking about a mutual colleague, and this person is actually looking to make a career change and has been struggling to actually find that right fit. And when we were talking, she said to me, "Do you actually know what this person is looking for?" And I said, I have to be honest, no, I don't, because she articulated a very broad sort of set of requirements, and both of us had admitted that it was really hard for us to know as we came across different opportunities or saw information what we would refer on to this individual, because we really didn't have a very clear idea of what it was that she wanted and where it would and what environment would best fit her. So really, what's important in the personal inventory is this is about you getting to know you and being able to express that to someone else. So the better handle you have on this, the more traction you'll be able to get when you have that discussion with your leader and with your HR department to be able to identify and provide the resources that you need.
And we've asked for some participation in the chat panel, Lisa, just about what people value or need in their work environment. Sort of what are their non-negotiables? Because we talked about values, we talked about interests, and then of course personal preferences. And the diversity in the comments that are coming in really indicate that what drives us and what we individually need varies. So some people say that they need a friendly and motivating environment. Other people are looking for autonomy, flexibility, or they need to have balance between their work and personal life. Being able to manage their own hours. Some people indicating that they want to work in a really collaborative environment with people who share a similar work ethic or that promotes teamwork. So it's really important that you know what your non-negotiables are as you move through the next steps to determining what it is you want to pursue, right?
Absolutely, and that's a really great point, Christina. And it's funny that you mentioned that. I was just actually speaking to a client the other day. I do work in leadership development in oil and gas as part of my offerings as well in my practice, and he's actually undergoing a change right now where the current project that he's working on, although when he was brought into it, he was told that it would be where he could finish off his career, is now ending. And so he was in a place, so he was one of these people that would have been in the box that said, happy in your role, when in fact now he's actually having to look at, now I'm making a change and I'm going to move somewhere else within the organization, and I'm not even really sure how to do it. And so, it's interesting that you're absolutely right that an important place to start is once we have that personal inventory, it is about, what are those things that are the non-negotiables, the deal breakers? What are the things that might be nice to have that may not necessarily be that deal breaker? And what are the things that are absolutely not part of that list? So absolutely that clarity around that, again, is really going to help you focus, and that's really a key part in career development. And as we mentioned before, career development is really about that journey and not the destination. So in the sense that we really want to make sure that we're thoughtful and mindful and intentional as we move through career development. So obviously the destination is important in terms of knowing it, but it is about how we get there. And as many people may be familiar with, there's an expression that every journey begins with a single step. So a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And it's important to actually just start taking those steps. And so with that, we're going to talk now about how to set that goal. So there's two ways of thinking about goals. One may be that it is a moving up, so a promotion or moving up within the organization. But as we said as well, it may be that there may not be an interest on your part to do that. That opportunity may not exist, and there may be lots of interest in simply moving laterally. Not everybody wants to be a manager. And again, it's interesting, when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, often there was a assumption that those reps that were the high-performing representatives wanted to be sales managers. And in fact, I worked with a number of reps who had been doing their role for more than 10 to 15 years, and that's really where they wanted to be. So it may be that you really want to enrich the current role that you have. And so really the key to creating those goals is to identify where is that gap and what can you do to fill that gap. So that would involve a process of just taking an analysis of where are you currently, where do you want to go, and what is it going to need to get there. So whether it is to move up in the organization or to take a role with greater responsibility, or it may be to move laterally within your organization, and it may be staying within the same area but taking on a different set of responsibilities. Or there is a possibility that you may want to do something completely different altogether. So an example that I have of that is a client that I had worked with who actually was quite early on in her career and had a marketing background. And so she had been working in print media and was actually in sales and not so much marketing. And when I met with her, she was really looking to make a change, and she knew that being in the current role that she had in the current organization was actually not probably going to last much longer, and so she was looking for some ideas about where she could move to next. In our discussion and in identifying through her personal inventory what was important to her was that she actually really wanted to work in entertainment. And specifically, she really liked music. And she told me what she actually really liked was country music. And so we talked about that, and we looked at and identified what were some of the gaps that she had and what she would need to do to bridge those gaps. And so, in fact, what she actually made as her next move was she actually looked at radio. So she did some research and looked at what would be opportunities where she could take some of the skills that she had in her current role and move them into something that she was interested in. Radio actually became a bridge for her. So she actually ended up in her next role moving to a local radio station here in Calgary and moving into sales with some marketing. And in fact, the last time I checked in on her, she's actually become one of their top sales reps. So she's had that opportunity to actually bring into her career elements of things that were really important to her and still be able to use the skills that she had. So we talked about the process of goal setting as being understanding your current state, defining what your desired state would be, and then looking to what to do to fill that gap. And what we want to do is ensure that we incorporate things such as your values, your interests, your preferences, whether you need new skills, and where the opportunities. So I just actually had a conversation with a client yesterday who, it was very interesting. He's had a very interesting career progression. So he's somebody that I would say is more senior in his career. And he started off, he has a very technical role in the oil and gas industry. And the role that he has now, he was just explaining to me, was one of an internal consultant. And really how this came about was exactly to the point here in terms of the process. So he noticed in the role that he'd had that there were things that were missing in terms of what was happening in the organization. So he actually was he's a pipeline designer. And what he mentioned is that typically in many oil and gas companies, they don't actually do the construction of the pipelining and the facilities. They do actually contract that out to engineering companies. But what he said was, well, I noticed that, what was missed was that we didn't have any kind of a quality control system or a way for us to actually really liaise with the engineering company to ensure that the plans that were being drawn and the construction that was taking place was actually consistent and in line with what we needed. And so, in fact, as a result of asking some questions around what was being done to address these issues, he was actually able to create a very unique role for himself. So what he described it to me as yesterday when we spoke was that he has created a niche role for himself, and what he's been able to do is what we talked about on the last slide was, in fact, not necessarily move up, but actually enrich the current role that he had. And now he has the opportunity to help others with that same background actually to develop that same role. So it's actually expanded from what he did as one individual to something now that the organization actually has several people and a team in place to do. So the next piece is, once we've set our goals, is actually to create that action plan. So 3 components to really be mindful of when you create that action plan is, first of all, who are the people that are going to be able to support you to reach your goals and can support you in terms of the actions that you need to take. Secondly, it's identifying what are the tools that I'm going to need. And thirdly, what are the resources that I can use? So first of all, when we talk about who are the people that can support me, there's 3 different ways that we can approach this. So this morning what we're going to talk about is some different strategies. So 3 different strategies that you can use in terms of communicating what it is that you're working on and what you need is through, first of all, what we call career dialogues. And career dialogues are really open discussions which are outside the realm of just a performance management discussion that can be used to really just be very candid and honest about where it is that you want to go. So look at what you're currently doing and what's available in terms of a future career path. So for example, when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, my last company actually with the HR department actually had created an organizational chart and career flow path for us to look at. So as a rep, we had different options. We could remain in that pathway of simply continuing to hone our skills as a sales rep and move into senior positions, or we could choose a management stream where we choose to actually move into a trainer position and then move into positions in head office in management, such as district sales manager or managing other regions as well. There was also a marketing pathway. So this is part of what a career dialogue could entail, is having a discussion around what are the other things that are available in the organization. Or if you're not sure what they are, it's a great opportunity to really ask about those. Typically, these are the kinds of conversations that you would want to have with your current leader. And really, probably what many of you are finding now is that many organizations are actually encouraging employees to drive these conversations. And if we go back to the initial stats, what we know is that if we are not taking control of our career, really there isn't anybody else that's going to drive that, or there is not a very high percentage of leaders that are driving that process. And one of the things that I did when I was in the pharmaceutical industry was that I decided that I really wanted to continue on that sales representative pathway, but I wanted to move into a senior rep position. So what I did was I actually took the time to just, we called them work with, where our district sales manager would come out and work with us. And so in one of those work with, I actually just sat down with my manager and said, here's where I'd like to go. I'd like to actually move to the next level of rep in our organization. What are the things that I'm going to need to do that? And from that conversation, what was identified was that I would need to focus on a couple of specific competencies in my performance evaluation. And actually one of the things that I did do was actually take a coaching workshop, which has now led me to the career that I have now. But it was one of the competencies, and it did allow me, by doing those things, actually progress to the next level of representative. So that's just an example of how you can use that career dialogue to help you to communicate to people what it is that you need and how you can be supported. The next strategy there is networking. And I'm sure many of you have heard about the value and the importance of networking particularly when you're a job seeker. But even if you are in a place where you're not looking to make a change or you're not sure if you should make a change, networking is really valuable. And network really is about building connections and developing relationships. And it's about, it's not necessarily one way, so it really is also about, too, how can I also be of support and value to someone else? And in today's world, there's lots of ways to build that network. And it's important to think about it not just internally within your own organization, but how might you do that externally? Are there professional associations that you could join? Are there interest groups that you have that you could join? So think about different ways that you can build that network and build relationships with people that may be able to provide more information and support you. And again, we typically think of networking as an in-person activity, but it can also be done through online tools such as LinkedIn, which has become a very popular way for people to connect with one another, build credibility, and exchange information. Something also as simple as even emailing those people that you know or want to connect with, or having a coffee meeting with people from time to time, simply to continue relationships that you have already. And then thirdly, another strategy is what we call the information interview. And really an information interview is an opportunity to conduct research, to ask questions, to gain insight from people that have had experience and knowledge in a particular area that you might be interested in. And one way to do this is also working with a mentor. So you may have someone that you've identified that you feel has established a career or achieved some things that you're really quite interested in, and this would be an opportunity to be able to gather more information and do the research. So this actually brings us closer to the end of our discussion today around career development. And really the three key elements that we've talked about today include doing that personal inventory. So it's really important to know yourself, understand what it is that drives you, what it is that is personally important to you before you set those goals and communicate that plan. So a simple three-step process of the personal inventory, understanding your values, interests, and personal preferences, creating that goal. So ensuring that you have a very clear focus of where it is that you want to go. And once you have that, the ability to be able to communicate that and gather the support that you need.
So before we continue to move forward, Lisa, I know we're getting close to the end here, and we definitely have some questions that are coming in. So we would like to take the opportunity to get some of those in before we hit the end of our session. But earlier you talked about beliefs and resources and personal preferences. And there's a question coming in about how do you overcome negative beliefs? So if we rephrased what you had said about beliefs in terms of thinking that you may not be skilled enough, you may have a fear of failing or even a fear of achieving success, what suggestions do you have on how people might be able to overcome any negative beliefs?
That's a great question, and it's one that can be, I mean, certainly there isn't always necessarily the easy answer, right? Because we know that a lot of these beliefs are very deeply ingrained. So I always, one of the first things I say that is as a coach, it's really important to recognize that awareness is the first step. One of the things that I think is really helpful is that surround yourself with people that know you well, that know what you're capable of. Because often it's just having that reassurance and that validation from others that can help. Certainly, obviously, there's also the option of working with a professional that can help somebody to work through those negative beliefs. And often it can also just be a process of just really writing down what are those things and asking yourself, is there anything that's really true about this? So I have an acronym for FEAR, which is that it's false expectations appearing real. And often it becomes a matter, too, of just asking oneself, well, if I don't, what are the consequences of not doing this? And really just challenging yourself. And if you feel that you're really struggling with it, as I mentioned, quite honestly, and I know it sounds somewhat simplistic, but it is about really surrounding yourself with those people that are going to be able to support you, they're really going to be able to see you in a way that maybe you're not seeing yourself. So one of the ways to also get a better idea of, what might be a good role for you or where you might want to advance in your career or how people would even describe you and the impact that you have is to really just ask those around you who know you well, what they see in you and, how they would describe you. And I think people would be amazed at how they're seen and how they're experienced.
That's a great suggestion, Lisa. And we're definitely hoping that for many people who are on the call that your leader may be able to play that role. But there seems to be some questions about managing expectations with your leader. So fear of potentially approaching your manager to have a discussion about what your aspirations may be or taking on new assignments or responsibilities because the leader may not want to let you go, or that you're creating suspicion or concern that you may be leaving the organization when really you're just trying to explore possibilities within it. So the questions that are coming in are relating to, how do you manage those career conversations with your leader in terms of managing upwards? And when's the best time to have it? Do you do that in a performance review or do you schedule a separate conversation?
I would, I think what I would say to that, Christina, is, certainly it depends on the leader. And I know that, we have a program at CMC which is about communicating at all levels of the organization. And I think one of the things that helps when we're having a conversation with our leader is to really understand what expectations are being placed on them. I think a lot of times where the struggle comes in having the conversation with the leader is that often they're in a similar situation to us in the sense that they've got a lot on their plate, they're really pressed for time, and they may have a lot of pressures that we're not aware of. And I think particularly leaders in middle management in organizations now are really struggling because there's a lot of demands that are being placed on them. And I think one of the things is that when you're going to have these conversations, you really want to be able to set it in an environment where both of you are not going to feel pressed for time. One of the things that I will actually coach my leaders on is to ensure that if they're giving feedback to their employees, that they actually have the time to do it. And that if their employee wants to come and have a conversation with them, that if they are distracted, that they don't have that conversation because it's simply not fair to either party. So what I would say is that I would probably think about setting aside a specific time to have this conversation outside of performance development, because I think that really this is an ongoing process. And that it's difficult to just have that one conversation a year and then try and pack all of those things in. If you can really be proactive about the process and really just make that request of, can we set aside half an hour? I'd really like to talk to you about, some things that I've been looking at in terms of my growth and development, and tie it back to some of the things that are part of your development plan, and be very mindful about and intentional about guiding that process so that you can say, here's really where I want to move to, what kind of resources are available, and what can we incorporate into what I'm doing now that is still going to allow me to meet my expectations.
That's great, Lisa. And you can have positive and productive conversations, with your leader. It is definitely about positioning, but I think that suggestion about timing as well, and even sometimes just taking yourself out of the office, whether it's yourself individually so that you can reflect quietly as you start to build your development plan, or to take your leader outside of the office as well to have that conversation. So you're removing some of the distractions, for sure.
And
so
I think
Lisa,
yeah, sorry, Christine.
Well, we've come to the end of our time, and you have so many insights to share with us, and we're really grateful that you took the time to provide your expertise to us today and to answer some of the questions that have been coming in. So I do want to thank you again for your active participation and again just for sharing your expertise with us. To all of you who are participating, we do want to thank you for your active participation on the chat panel and through the polls as well. You will be receiving an email with a link to the recording that will give you access to the visuals of the slides so that you'll be able to replay a lot of what Lisa has shared with us, and again to pick up on some of those tips that she's provided to us. Just a reminder that you can continue to tweet using our hashtag CMC events. The contest that we're running is to win a free registration into our Preparing for Leadership program. So if leadership is an area that you're aspiring to, that may be a great course for you. So just send any tweets with the hashtag CMC events. The contest will close at 11:59 Eastern Time on January 31st. You will receive access to a survey as well at the end of the session when you're closing out from your WebEx connection. Please give us your thoughts on today's session and also give us your suggestions on what you'd like to see us cover in the future as we move into the next phase of our planning. We're definitely interested in hearing your thoughts. And again, feel free to visit our website at cmcoutperform.com. We did mention that you can download CMC's most current course guide, which there is an editorial section on what's next for your team, which is focusing on the time to think about your career development. And there is a career planning worksheet that's included in the editorial section, so feel free to actually request a print copy, or you can download it online through our website. So again, everyone, thank you so much for participating today. We really enjoyed having you, and we'll look forward to seeing you virtually on another webinar in the future. Thank you.